Welcome to the Cyber Risk Management Podcast. Our mission is to help executives become better cyber risk managers. We are your hosts. I'm Kip Boyle, CEO of Cyber Risk Opportunities.
And I'm Jake Bernstein, Cybersecurity Counsel at the law firm of Newman DuWors.
And this is the show where we help you become a better cyber risk manager.
The show is sponsored by Cyber Risk Opportunities and Newman DuWors LLP. If you have questions about your cybersecurity related legal responsibilities,
and if you want to manage your cyber risks just as thoughtfully as you manage risks in other areas of your business, such as sales, accounts receivable, and order fulfillment, then you should become a member of our Cyber Risk Managed program, which you can do for a fraction of the cost of hiring a single cybersecurity expert. You can find out more by visiting us at cyberriskopportunities.com and newmanlaw.com.
So, Kip, what are we going to talk about this morning?
Well, it's our first episode of the podcast, so why don't we tell everybody who we are and what we do? So I'll go first. As you know from the introduction, I'm the founder and CEO of a company called Cyber Risk Opportunities, and we're going to turn 3 years old here pretty quickly, so we're pretty excited about that. Our mission is to help executives become better cyber risk managers. That's what we do. How about you, Jake?
My mission is to provide legal advice regarding cybersecurity in general and privacy laws around the nation. Today is the May 24th, and it is the day before GDPR Day. So that is a big moment in security and privacy law around the entire world. So it's a good time for us to be introducing ourselves.
Okay. So Jake and I have done some work together. We have some customers in common and have provided cyber risk advice and counsel under attorney-client privilege. We're going to talk about why that might be useful if you're a cyber risk manager. But I wanted to take a moment and talk about, why do I do this? I've been working in the field of cybersecurity now for over 20 years. It's hard to believe because 20 years ago, the internet really wasn't a thing for most people, 20 plus years ago. And I got my start when I was in the Air Force working on some weapons testing projects. And I didn't set out to become a cybersecurity expert, but I had to learn computer security and network security as part of my job. And so when the internet showed up and I left the military, it turns out there was plenty of work for me to do. And since then, I've worked in a lot of different industries, and I've helped many executives manage their personal cyber risk and their organizational cyber risks. And, Jake, what I love about my work is these are very smart people, and they have a hunger to learn what's cyber risk and how can they tame this, this new risk area. I know it's been around for a while now, but, compared to a lot of business risks, this is a pretty new area, and executives are capable of learning what to do, but they struggle, I think, in part because they perceive it as being a highly technical area, and it is to some degree, but I certainly don't think they need to become technical wizards in order to be able to work in that space. But what's your experience, Jake?
So my experience is I also did not set out to become a cyber risk or cybersecurity attorney or expert of any kind. Really, I kind of fell into it. I always enjoyed playing around with computers, and I had a friend who had a home LAN back when having a home LAN was a very unusual thing to have.
Oh, you mean a local area network?
A local area network, yes. Back in the mid 90s. So
that was rare. I'll bet I know what that looked like.
Yeah, it was a lot of cabling all over the place. But I started my career at the Attorney General's office for the state of Washington, and I was working in the Consumer Protection Division in the high-tech unit, where I focused on protecting consumers against online fraud and scams and things like that. And over the years, it quickly became more and more about privacy and security. Everything from the malware and what we called scareware to rather egregious privacy violations from really all over the place. So with data tracking, a loss prevention system that was really just one of the worst forms of literal spyware on people's computers. It would take pictures of you without your notice.
Right. Yeah, I think a
And
school somewhere actually used that for a while to bad effect.
yeah, so in this particular case was a rent-to-own company. But at any rate, during my time at the AG's office, I really kind of fell in love with the area and how impactful it could be. And so when I was invited still at the AG's office to come to the Secure World Expo, I went. I felt like the token government lawyer. I knew nothing really about security proper, but that was 5 years ago. And today I have quite a bit of experience. We've worked together for the better part of 2.5 years, um, which it's almost your entire corporate history and almost my entire private practice history at this point.
Right.
Um, and I agree with you. I find that this is an area that people tend to worry about without really understanding what it is they're worrying about. And I think one of the most fascinating aspects of it is that, as technical as it seems, it is a legal. It's got legal facets. It's got management facets. It's got human resources facets. It's really a very broad. It's a true team sport,
Right.
and I really enjoy helping companies and my clients work through this. Make themselves safer. And as you're fond of saying, because we're all foot soldiers in the cybersecurity war, it really helping our clients helps make everyone else safer as well. It's kind of a herd immunity effect that we get. So
That's
um,
right.
I just find it to be a very rewarding, and so much so that I spend a bunch of time and effort to become certified as a information security services professional, which for a lawyer is pretty unusual. So
Yeah, I don't think there are very many lawyers out there that have a CISSP. Well, I think one time you told me it was like less than a dozen in the United States.
I think it's up to about between 30 and 40, but not many. I mean,
No.
considering the number of lawyers in the country, that's a minuscule number indeed. So
Yeah, that's right. And I think that's a good kind of a barometer, if you will, about how nascent cyber risk is in the legal community. And but I think we're also seeing signs that it's starting to become a very important topic, and so we could expect more CISSP attorneys. Like, you need to go to more school, right?
yeah, exactly. Now, and I think you're right. I mean, I think that you know the world has really changed a lot in 20 years in terms of what it means to be secure. It used to be that this stuff, only the military really worried about this
Mm-hmm.
uh, at 50 years ago, 40 years ago,
Yeah.
30
Or the
years ago,
NSA.
or
Yeah.
well, I will lump them in with the military in a sense, but the intelligence agencies, the militaries,
Yeah.
um, and maybe very specific certain types of industries like telecommunications. They're the only ones that thought this was a big deal. Now, these cyber attacks are so common that I believe I saw an article that uh, Visa's or MasterCard's cybersecurity team has no budget.
Which isn't to say they have no money.
which which is which is to say quite the opposite. They have as much money as they need.
That's right.
This is a situation where no budget means it's actually not zero, it's a blank check.
Of course, in my history, no budget meant zero money. So
it,
it's
it did. Oh, and for a lot of companies it still does mean zero money.
yeah, especially in the middle market and small business.
Yep. But the I believe I saw too that one of the major banks they're setting up war rooms, which sounds like a military term because it is a military term.
Yeah.
And what's so fascinating is, I think it was something like 20 million attacks, to date in 2018,
Hmm.
which just, I think that number is astounding. And you think about the history of, for example, bank robberies. This is a theme that you and I have used before in talks. I mean, that number is there probably haven't been 20,000 armed bank robberies in the last 100 years.
Mm,
Yet you're talking about 20 million cyber assaults on our financial institutions
right.
inside of 6 months.
Yeah.
Um,
And that's one of the things that I'm really excited about with our podcast is, we're going to be talking to our listeners about why does a bank need a war room? Why are there 20 million attacks coming at them? And helping them understand, why does Kip say that we're all foot soldiers in the cyber wars right now? I mean, what does that mean? And I think what we're seeing and what we'd like to share with our listeners is, from where we stand at the intersection of technology and business and the legal world. I mean, we're seeing some amazing things happen right now that can help to explain why has the world changed and how will it continue to change with respect to cyber risk. And one of the things that the movies and newspapers would have us to believe is that cyber risk is all about downside, but what we've experienced and what we want to share with our listeners is that cyber risk actually can have an upside as well, right? Jake, we've talked about that.
yeah, no, we have. Cyber risk is it can be a real business differentiator. If you're a vendor and you make cyber risk management a priority, you're going to be in a very good position when you get questionnaires and what we call supply chain risk management activities coming from your customers.
Right.
This is happening all the time. You and I just met with a new client last week about this, and it's nobody can avoid it because as we learned from, for example, the Target breach, uh, your attack vectors can come from many different directions. The threats are everywhere, and in
Right.
Target's case, the bad guys came through essentially the air conditioning,
Right. Yep.
and that's a risk that previously had not been well identified.
Right. So, yeah, supply chain management is huge for very large companies, and so if you're in a middle market, if you're a middle market company or a small company, and you're doing business with very large companies, then if you haven't seen this kind of supply chain pressure on you yet, you will. And I also think that pressure will continue to increase. And so what that means is that you've got to have a great cyber risk story. And if should something go bad, and you end up in front of a regulator or what I call the court of public opinion, as Equifax recently did, or even in a court of law, which is Jake's territory, you've got to have a really compelling case, a really great story to tell about why you were not negligent, even though something bad happened.
Yeah, and you sound like a litigator, Kip, because cases really do come down to stories.
Yep.
You'll if you watch TV and movies, with legal thrillers and things like that, you may have an impression that oftentimes these cases are won or lost on quote technicalities. And while that certainly can happen, in the civil arena, particularly with regulation that you see around cybersecurity and privacy requirements, it's rarely a quote technicality that
Hmm.
that's gonna win or lose you a case. Instead, it's what kind of story can you tell about what you've done?
And not a
How
lie. We're
And
not
not a
saying
lie,
you're going to
right?
tell a lie,
No,
right?
this is not a lie. Because here's the thing: is that your story has to be backed up with facts
Yeah, with evidence and testimony
and
and
evidence and testimony, and it's going to be painfully obvious to the other side, to the judge, and to the jury if you're making stuff up on the fly.
right.
And so, one of the reasons that you and I work together is that because the risk of legal liability is so high with respect to cyber risk management, it's extremely wise to measure, score, and mitigate your own cyber risks under attorney-client privilege, and that is actually one of the major services that we offer.
That's right. So not only can an executive understand their cyber risk and then manage it thoughtfully and intelligently, but they can do it with the protection that would allow them to uh, determine whether they wanted to disclose, in the case of a regulator or in a court, right? How much of my cyber risk management program do I want to share? And in an era of e-discovery, this is a very powerful shield that an executive can have over their program.
It is, and it goes to the history of the attorney-client privilege. It's literally about where the bodies have been buried, right? And now that would be if you're talking homicide, that's a criminal matter. But in our field, there may very well be the proverbial bodies that are buried, largely, oftentimes within IT departments that may not want to share the fact that there are bodies buried in the backyard.
Right.
And so, doing it under attorney-client privilege allows you to open up without fear of that information getting out and potentially making you look really bad, either in the court of public opinion or in a court of law.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, well, so that's who we are. That's what we do. And what we're hoping you, our listener, is that you're going to stick around, because we're going to be releasing a whole series of episodes coming up that are going to dive deeply into all of this and do it in a way that is, respects the technology here at play, but isn't going to weigh us down with a lot of technological jargon. And we're not going to try to teach you how to build networks or anything like that. We're going to keep this at an executive level, this conversation that we're going to have. We hope that you're going to be a part of it. So thanks for joining us today on the Cyber Risk Management Podcast. Thanks, everybody, for joining us today on the Cyber Risk Management Podcast.
Remember that cyber risk management is a team sport and needs to incorporate management, your legal department, HR, and IT for full effectiveness.
And management's goal should be to create an environment where practicing good cyber hygiene is supported and encouraged by every employee. So if you want to manage your cyber risks and ensure that your company enjoys the benefits of good cyber hygiene, then please contact us and consider becoming a member of our Cyber Risk Managed program.
You can find out more by visiting us at cyberriskopportunities.com and newmanlaw.com. Thanks for tuning in. See you next time.